Okay, so I haven't... Okay. This is a nightmare I may not be ready to live through.
I started getting crushes on boys.
Real embarrassed about this.
My mouth gets the best of me pretty much all the time.
Okay, I'm just like, how do... Okay. All right.
There we go.
Hey everybody, you're listening to We Still Like You, the embarrassing storytelling show where we get people to get up on stage and tell their most embarrassing or shameful story. I'm Jesse Batend, and this week we're going to Hollywood.
I don't drink or have like heroin in a 8-ball or whatever, so I'd say that theater is my drug of choice.
So for my day job, I produce podcasts for a small little audio company, mostly documentaries. And the thing about making documentaries is you're always looking for more stuff. Notes, memories from friends, old photos, and obviously, in the case of podcasts, audio recordings. Of course, most of the time, we're not that great at keeping records. And that makes sense, I guess. It's not until the crazy thing has happened that you realize there's a story worth telling. In fact, I think just about the only people who are going to benefit directly from the future armies of sentient Amazon camera drones, besides Amazon, I guess, are documentarians. If we had our way, everything would be on tape. But in the absence of that, a diary is probably the next best thing. Not only do you get this window into who the person writing that diary was, but at the time, it was written without the expectation of what's coming. So, in the case of a celebrity, for example, you get to see who that person was before they were famous. I guess you could say the same thing about serial killers. But in Megan's case, the opposite is true. From a very young age, Megan knew she was destined for stardom. So she decided to use her diary to keep meticulous track of everything that happened on her way to becoming a mega celebrity. From Chicago, here's comedian Megan Stalter.
A couple weeks ago, I was making out with someone. What if that was the end of the story? What if I was like, that's it? And I stopped mid-makeout, and I started sobbing my eyes out, crying really hard. And they were like, oh, okay. And I said, I am just really overwhelmed with how successful and famous I'm going to be. And then I said specifically, I'm gonna get on SNL. Yeah, what? Why would you, what? And then we kept kissing, and I was like, okay, and I was really crying, and then we kept kissing, and they were like, oh, just so you know, I can't like sleep with you tonight. And I was like, yeah, obviously. Like I'm a fucking lunatic. So I just wanted to open like that because one thing about me, I'm very obsessed with performing and very delusional about it. And I've always been that way. So this is me when I was 8 in a sketch. I'm still gonna be, you can catch me on SNL. This isn't the first time you'll see me on TV. So basically I'm like doing the lines and the line is like, who wants peas? And my sister goes, oh, do I have to say that? She's very nervous. And I said, just say it, Abby. And then she's like, oh, please no. And then I go, just turn it off. And you can see I'm about to say I'm happy. She's like, do I have to say it? And I'm like, yeah, you do. And I grab her neck. And then I'm throwing them at her eyes. So she's crying. And then I go, oh! Just turn it off. And I'm like, what? This bitch ruined my performance. So I've always been really, really insane. And I started as an adult. So I made that kind of stuff my whole young life. Oh, drinking out of a bag. So I would make stuff my whole life like that as a child. And then when I was an adult, I got into comedy. I joined and I got accepted into a Shakespearean improv group in Ohio. And so I was like, oh my God, what? I'm so excited. But I got an email the first night of the show that was just like, you killed everybody, you killed everyone in the scenes. Like, 'cause I didn't know a lot about the Shakespearean language, but like I knew people died in the end, so I kept like poisoning everyone in the cast. Just like, and I was trying to be funny. So I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, yeah, you're like, that's not cool. Like you really derailed the show. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I'll try better. And I kept doing it. Like I just like had no idea what to do in the show. And so I was like, well, that's funny. People are dying. So he said, like, he gave me one more chance, and I did it again. And he emailed me like, I got to cut you from the show. And so my mom emailed him, and I found it today, and it just says, this was hours after I got cut from the show too. So it just says, Dear Black Box Theater, I would just like to inform you that me and my friends will not, in all caps, be attending any of your shows anymore. We used to have so much fun, but since you pulled out rising star Megan Stalter from your shows, we will not be back. And then it says, bad decision, Cindy. So she didn't even change her name. So like he messaged me on Facebook hours after she sent it, and he was like, this is your mom. And I was like, yeah. Like I was like, that's her. And then I showed up to watch a friend's show, and he was like, you can't come in here unless your mom apologizes. And I was like, bye. I can't come in then. I'm not. So after that happened, that Shakespeare, I was like, I'm ready for Chicago. I was like, that's it. Like, I need to go. It was in the dead of winter, and I looked at my mom and was like, I need to be there. So I went, and my stepdad's super delusional too, and he said, this was like the night before I go, and he says, I really believe in you and what you're about to do, and you need to take a journal and write down everything. Every important thing, like everyone you meet, every show you go to, your bits. And I'm like, yes. And we're both crying. And then and he's like, because when you're famous, people are going to want to read it as like a book. And I was like, I already have it ready. Like I had a book ready to do it. So I'm going to read a couple little paragraphs. But before you guys get too excited, though, it is so unremarkable and so boring. But I think the funny part is it's so embarrassing because I try to be super funny in like a couple lines, and the rest is just, it would never be a book. And when I wrote this, I was like, this is a book. I'm gonna release this after, and it's so long. Okay, so this is just a little, so it's boring. It's really, okay. So this is one entry, a couple pages in, and it says, and this is really super, okay, so it just says, ladies' night. It says, just going over my set hours before the show. And as usual, I'm nervous about finding parking. But for the first time since being here, I'm really more excited to perform than nervous. With each show, I get more excited to do different stuff. And then it says, bring it, ladies. Let's show our moms that weird is sexy. And then it says, so that was supposed to be the funny line, and it's just like, and then it says like me pretending to have friends already. Okay, so and then the next entry, which was, I wrote this the same night, and it just says, this show never happened. Candace and I walked for 20 minutes. Candace is my room. Anyone know Candace? My old roommate. Candace and I walked for 20 minutes in Wrigleyville, and it was freezing cold. We were trying to find the place. I'm a really good writer. Finally, we walk into the bar, And a very nice fellow said, "Are you here for a dinner party?" And I'm cracking up writing this, by the way. I say, "Apparently we came the one night they weren't doing stand-up." And then he ushered us into the back room, and the bartender gave me a free Coke, as if it were an old Western. I don't know what that means. What? I don't know what I meant by that. And then it says, the only other show we were going to try ended up being in a horrible area. So we bought 2 cartons of ice cream, frozen pretzels, and I drank ginger ale. And Candace drank wine. Oh, what a fun story! And it says, "I hope the ice cream didn't cancel out my morning workout, since I'm obviously meeting my future boyfriend on Monday's show." And these are all open mics. And it says, "Who are you meeting? Who are you meeting?" And it just says, "Feelings." It says, it gets way worse because it says, "Feelings, death by chocolate." And also it says, "Also, I didn't impress Candace with my driving skills." Oh, God. So this says, this is a different day. So it says, "Free parking again?" Plus, not only was it free, but so easy. I got in the bar, and I saw a flu of white male comics, and I looked and saw an old man and he acted like I was his best friend. And then this is where I get really sassy, and I said, "Seriously, have I only met 7-year-old men? I really did." Many hours were spent listening to many Tinder and unemployment jokes. And then it says, "What is Tinder a word?" Okay, and then this is, I'll tell you, this is the saddest part I found in the book. So it gets sad for a minute. It says, "I just ate 2 Easy Macs put together, if that describes my performance well enough. I wanted to jump ship, abandon the mission." I was at Power Hour, if anybody. It says, "Doing a 3-minute version of Bark's a character I used to do. Well, people didn't laugh. That was the hardest thing ever. I never wanted to run so fast away from my own material in my life. But I don't want to be like every other comic." Sorry, I'm not talking about. I don't want to go up there and make up stuff about my day or talk about sex. And Mike, your story was really good. And I'm not talking about anyone specifically. I just hated dying up there. I just wanted to run. Maybe I'd run home. I was very dramatic. Maybe I'd run to Wiley's, my club at home, and everyone I loved there, to be like heaven. Maybe I'd run to Peru, or maybe I'd run back to my youth. I was 23. I just wanted to run. And then it says, "In a world full of white guys talking about sex and yelling because they think it's funny, I will be different. I will be different until they laugh." Because I did find one more thing in my, I found one more thing in my book, and I printed it out, and it's probably the most embarrassing thing. It's way more embarrassing than The Notebook. I found it. It's just 2 pages, really big font, and it was just labeled screenplay, and I made this around the same time. Okay, this is really humiliating because it's not funny at all. So it says screenplay, and it says, scene opens with a girl in her mid-20s brushing her hair. That was me for sure. And it says, a voiceover goes, my mother once said, what will you have left if you cut off your hair? And it says, scene changes. Camera fades in on May and a boy named Max. It's dark, and they're standing on the corner outside of May's house. Scene takes place the night before the current opening, so it's shooting back and forth. If you can keep up with that, very. So you see a girl brushing her hair, then you see May leaning. So, and this is May's line. She says, "You changed your mind. How do you just do that? How do you just change your mind about a person?" And I'm a person, Max. I'm a human. How can you just change your mind? It hurts. And then he says, I don't know what you want me to say. Calm down. I'm sorry. And then she says, don't tell me to calm down. It took a long time for me to even consider any of this. And you changed your mind. I feel like this is so specific to somebody. And then it says, fades out, and May's crying, and Max walks away. And then it just says, and then it fades back to the girl. And this is the end. She just goes, and this was supposed to be a full movie, and she just goes, what does that even mean? Thank you so much.
Comedian Megan Stalter. Coming up, Keith McGill has to choose between fame and his family. As an actor, you're always looking for that break, the job that gets you noticed. Keith's family was pretty supportive of his acting ambitions, but that doesn't mean they didn't get in his way. From Louisville, here's Keith McGill.
About 16 years ago, a year ago, January, my mom died. That's not the funny part. But it's funny because I always say died. Like people ask, so how's your mom? I said, well, my mom died. I said, oh, right, because people always say like my mom passed or I lost my mom, and I don't like euphemisms for that because lost my mom, it just sounds so, like I know where she is. She's in Evergreen, plot B53. I know right where she is. It's not like somebody call my mom so I can see where I left her, like a cell phone. It's like, oh, she's under the bed. I found her. But she had cancer. And a fun story, my brother had cancer at the same time. Right, so that was a good time. And we found out he had cancer because she called one night and said, hey, your brother's talking crazy. I don't know what's going on. And my brother liked drugs a lot. So I thought maybe that's what it is. And turns out, no, he had lung cancer, which metastasized to brain cancer, which metastasized to crazy. And so he was in the house, and I said, okay, we got to go to the hospital. He said, no, I can't go to the hospital yet. I said, no, we got to go to the hospital first. Let's find your wallet. He's like, no, I don't. Get out of the house. We just got to go. I said, no, we got to find your wallet. And so I'm looking around the house for the wallet, and finally he has one of his moments, and he grabs me by the throat. And pushes me, and so then now my brother and I used to fight all the time. We had since gotten it together, but then he started going through this thing. But we had been fine the whole time, and then he grabs me by the throat, and I just have this flashback to asshole brother. And I literally, I'm 220, he's 130, and I pick him up, and I push him against the wall. And I'm like, no, right? And he's all, okay, maybe not. So I put him down, but the thing about it was that my mom was just freaked out. She was just crying because her sons were fighting wrestlers and whatever. I said, okay, fine, let's just go. I'll come back. I'll look for your wallet later, blah, blah, blah. Turns out, motherfucker had his water in his pocket. So that was a party. So we go, and he's all ill and everything. Well, this whole incident Suddenly my mom's not feeling well. And I'm like, oh, well, she's probably, she's very upset that we were fighting. And then it turns out she has cancer. And here's the trick. It was, and I want to say this right because there was a mix-up, cancer of the peritoneum. Yes, you're so far ahead of me, I can't even stand it. Right? And I'm all, what? I can't even talk about, because I got it confused with perineum. And yeah. And I was like, I can't talk about teen cancer with Mom. And so what peritoneal cancer, what happens is that there's like, if you don't know, mini biology lesson, there's a little fluid, like, and a kind of a sac that like keeps all your, your stuff in, like your organs and whatnot. And so she had cancer in there, but because it's in the fluid, they can't do radiation because you can't just zap it because it's everywhere, and they can't do, they can't go in and get it because it's like, they don't know where it is. So she had to have chemo. Now, the first time she had chemo was fine. It was like before Christmas, but after Thanksgiving, she was fine. She was eating. She was happy. It was good. I said, oh, she's going to make it. She's going to pull through. So the second time she has chemo, it was like, boom, it hits her really hard. Like, she hits really hard. Like, we go from she's eating dinner to she's eating grapes to she drinks Ensure to she drinks Ensure if it's in a milkshake to she drinks water to she drinks nothing, right? And so my sister and I, because in the meantime, my brother is in no shape to help out. So my sister and I are like taking turns watching her, but I'm over there most of the time because I live like 10 minutes away. My sister lives almost Bullitt County, so it's a drive. So I'm there all the time, and we're just sitting in the house, and she just kind of laying there and whatever, and occasionally, she'll ask for water or ice chips or whatever, and we just watch all the Golden Girls and all the Law and Order and all the Heat of the Night and all the Matlock. We just basically watch dead people shows. And I was like, you realize no one on this show is still alive. You realize? And so one day we're just laying there and it's really quiet and I'm nodding off to, I don't know what's happened on Law and Order. And she says, you look really tired. You can lay down here with me if you want to. And I'm like, well, no, I'm okay. But I didn't figure it out for a long time. She was saying, why don't you lay down here with me? Because I miss you. Because when I was a kid, when I was a little tiny kid, like it was my brother and sister, but they were older, they were out of the house, so it was just us, and every once in a while I would sleep with Mom. In this same room, not in the same bed, but in the same room. And so at that time, she said, well, why don't you come in here and lay down if you're tired? I said, no, I'm fine, and I didn't realize it. And I look back and I go, oh, I should have done that, but I didn't. So there's one day I'm watching, and my sister's supposed to come the next morning. And I'm like, Mom, I'm not going to be here, but Anna will be here tomorrow because I have a shoot on an important movie for the Hallmark Corporation. Because they rarely make a movie. And big opportunity. And it's called J.L. Ranch. I don't know if you saw it. And it starred the illustrious fascist, John Voight, and also a Mr. James Caan. I know. And I was supposed to have a scene with James Caan, right? And my two lines were, sir, I can't take this. And yes, sir. Those were my two big lines. So something about a bribe and whatever, but most importantly, it was about me taking it. So I said, I'm going to shoot this thing tomorrow, so I won't be here, but she'll be here, blah, blah, blah. So I go by at like 6 o'clock in the morning before I go out of town to shoot this thing, and I go into her bedroom, and she's on the floor. And I said, oh, I bet she tried to get up in the middle of the night, and she fell, and I hope she's okay, and I felt so bad about that. And I said, all right, Mom, let's get you back into bed. Nothing. Mom, come on, let's get back into nothing. She was gone. Now, even after watching episode after episode of Law and Order, I was not prepared for that. And so I'm like, on the TV, they call 911. So I called the 911, and the woman's all, 911, what's your emergency? I said, well, I think my mom's dead. All right, is she breathing? Let's start over. I think my mom's dead. And she's all right, can you move her? Are you not hearing the first sentence I'm saying? I think, and so finally they're like, okay, so we'll get an ambulance and the coroner out and whatever. And I'm like, okay. And the thing about, and people who know me know this, that I have a weird, dare I say, dark sense of humor. So I'm sitting there, it's me and Mom, And, and she's, I've covered her because I can't move her. I mean, literally, I can't. But I've covered her with a blanket and everything. And I'm looking at her, and I said, this is the weirdest thing. And this thought pops in my head, and I go, you know what, Mom? I'm supposed to be shooting a film with James Caan today. You could not wait one day to shoot. And then here's the part that's a little teeny tiny bit shameful. I actually thought about, she's already dead. A few hours won't make any difference. No, but I obviously didn't leave, which was good because my sister, she couldn't even come in the house. She's like, I can't even go in until they've taken Mom, etc. So it was really good that I wasn't going to leave, so I did stay and everything. And so years later, not years, months later, I'm at another audition in Cincinnati, right? And I'm talking to this guy, and we're like, well, what have you done lately? It's like, well, I did this little commercial for blah, blah. It's like, well, I do stand up, and I teach kids, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what have you done lately? It's like, well, it's the weirdest thing. You can't make this shit up. It's the weirdest thing. I did this movie in Louisville. Well, not Louisville, but Kentucky for Hallmark. And I said, what movie was that? And he said, Jade something. And I went, were you in a scene with James Caan? And he said, yes. And I said, the movie was J.L. Ranch. And he said, how did you know? And I said, well, because I was supposed to do it and there was an emergency and I couldn't do it. What I wanted to say was, you got the part because my mom died. I hope you're happy. But no, I mean, this whole funeral thing has been really strange because even at the funeral, I could not behave. There was a whole thing with my mother's church, and he was, the preacher who was there was fired. And so they got this substitute preacher. And he's trying to be very, very proper, right? He's trying to speak all the words in the using all the letters and everything. And what he wanted to say was, now Hattie McGill is going to go through this portal into heaven. What he said was, now Hattie McGill is going to ascend through the porthole into heaven. And I looked at my cousin and I went, Mom's big. I don't think she's going to get through. The port, is there a heaven grease? Oh, that was cool. Thanks for letting me share that. Thank you, everybody.
Comedian Keith McGill. And that does it for this episode of We Still Like You. If you enjoyed today's show, do us a favor and tell someone about it. You'll never know how much it actually helps. If you really want to do us a solid, sign up to support the show on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/We Still Like You. A couple of bucks a month will keep the roof over our heads and get you something cool. If you want to tell a story at one of our live shows, check out the submission page. You can find that at WeStillLikeYou.com. We're on Facebook at We Still Like You. We tweet at We Still Like You. I'm Jesse Batend, and as always, thanks for being your terrible selves.